First of all, what is your name?
Edwin Maus, M-A-U-S.
What brought your family to Winona?
Well, migration, my great-grandparents migrated here, and it sort of just built on that. We're German descent, and Luxembourg and Irish, and of course they were all migrating here at the time, and that's how things got going.
How long ago was that? When did they come over?
Great-grandparents migrated here in the late 1880s and spent time out in Dakotas and decided to move to the Winona area, to Rolling Stone, a Luxembourg community.
Tell me a little bit about your childhood. What was that like?
Well, I was born and raised on a farm, and 4 miles north of Rolling Stone on Oak Ridge. I would say now privileged to hear the Luxembourg language spoken in Rolling Stone among my parents and grandparents, and some German.
So as a child, you worked on a farm then?
Yes, I grew up working for my father, like all the farm boys did. I went to high school at Rolling Stone Holy Trinity, and the farm boys had to get home for chores at night, and they got up in the morning for chores in the morning.
And what about your education?
I received education, of course, at high school Holy Trinity, and I was asthmatic, and my father wasn't sure I could farm. I was bad. So he sent me to Dunwoody Industrial College, and I got a training in electricity and electronics and automotive. And it turned out after a while that the asthma and hay fever subsided, and I stayed on the farm. I took it over, and that's where we are now.
Tell me a little bit about your family, about your kids, when you got married. And
well, when we got married, we bought a historic home in Minnesota City, one of the first built there, and lived there till we decided to take the farm over in 1973. And we had 5 children at that time, 3 boys and 2 girls. And it was just the right time to take the farm over, because at that time they were getting to the point where they could help, you know. Yeah. And so they lived on the farm till they got their educations and moved on, but they still came home on weekends and Sundays, and we would still work the farm. Good help. So one's a composite engineer, another one works for Benchmark, he's a CPA, and the third one's into insurance, he's got in the cities. And the other son is in Burnsville, and our oldest son, Bryson, is in Goodville, lives in Goodville.
how about your many grandchildren?
I think there's 8. I'm pretty sure there's 8.
And how did you, with all this other education, get interested in tuning pianos?
Well, that was the other thing when this health situation was. I took a piano tuning night school course at Minneapolis College of Music at that time, and then I apprenticed up there for my sister, who taught private lessons in South St. Paul. And when I got back here, I was ready to start. So the folks were in good health, and they farmed quite a while till '73, and so I worked up a business here in Winona, and that's how I actually did this piano in I think it was around '68. I could be off a year or 2.
How long have you been tuning pianos then?
Well, I really started in the cities in 1956 about, yes, but I was just doing, you know, not full-time, just part-time and working into it, yeah.
And what goes into tuning piano, and how long does it take?
It involves a lot of different conditions, weather conditions, tension conditions. It's just so numerous to mention.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deterioration is a big one. Now this one didn't have very little deterioration. Yeah. It was well taken care of here. Well, it depending on the condition. Well, the norm is like 1.5 to 2 hours. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Or sometimes less, depending on how bad they are. Yeah.
And what are the best pianos, in your opinion? Is there particular brands that are better than others?
Well, they all have their performance capacity. Steinway is the unique one because they're the piano that was built that would produce throughout the register of the piano. You had Baldwin, we had Baldwin that was good in the bass and tenor section, a little weak on the treble. But these professional piano artists preferred either one. Some like the heavy bass for Brahms, or, you know, depending on the composer they were working for. But Steinway is the overall one. I mean, you could do anything on, they could do anything on Steinway.
Do you have a memorable client that you worked with? Someone that stands out?
They all stood out. There was great people to work for, you know. Yeah. For a while I was doing pianos in all three colleges, and they're all terrific. I mean, motivated and dedicated and fun.
Yeah, okay. Enjoyable.
Yeah.
Do you still tune pianos?
I do. I'm still working in a university here in Winona State part-time. You know, okay. Do the practice pianos in some studios.
Do you play piano?
Well, I fooled around with it. I took lessons, and I can do a little accompaniment chording, but my main instrument was accordion.
Oh, really?
So that's how I really got interested in sound, good combination sounds and that kind of thing.
Now, is that something you learned from a family member, or?
No, I took private lessons from Babette Christensen here in Winona. She was a fixture. They were a fixture here in Winona.
Yeah. Now, do you still play the accordion?
Oh, yeah. I got started again. For a while I left it stand, but no, we're going again. I'm going again, yeah.
So Ed, how did you get involved in the Winona County Progress and Preservation Association?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't know where to start. It probably happened, I think it happened through Dr. Younger. And I don't even, I was dealing with Dr. Younger restoring his Cremona player piano. And we got started, of course he was an avid historian and a leader, talking about the courthouse, which was up for demolition, see. And it was his idea we start a entity that would preserve the courthouse organization. And that's how it started. It just grew and grew. It was the most wonderful, what we call project that I ever did. It was interesting that we dealt with so many prominent Winona people that had roots. I mean, they were serious. They didn't want that thing coming down. And they knew better. The one family had he was an engineer, structural engineer, and he had to, he would happen to be in town to investigate the Lewiston High School, which was set up for demolition. And we got it straight from, I hate to say it, but the horse's mouth. Now, the Progress and Preservation Association got him to do an evaluation of the courthouse while he was here doing the one at Lewiston. So he said, you got the same thing as Lewiston has. He says, they didn't maintain the roof. It was a 4-story building. All the upper structure got rotten, and the plaster fell down, and lucky there was no students there. It would have not been good. So they phased it out by default. And that's what's happening here to your courthouse. He says that building is built to last forever. Miles Johnson was his name. I'll never forget him. The upstairs was full of pigeons. They weren't maintaining anything, nothing, for about 40 years. And then he started telling us all the good qualities about it. He says they call it a fire hazard. He says they got 20 by 20 superstructure up there, solid fir. He says you could evacuate it 10 times before it would collapse. And he says that's no problem. And then the south wall was tipping, it was leaning. Well, he says that happened the first 10 years it was built. He says that's not going anywhere. So he gave us a real good ammunition to protect that courthouse. And of course it did turn out that we did. And it was I mean, we had people working for us that really made it possible to save that courthouse. And we had donations. Well, we were broke many times. We had to go through a lawsuit, an injunction, and that really, how you call it, clouded our reputation, our names, but we kept on going. They were dedicated people who really wanted to do something that would be substantial for Winona, and they did.
Now, the courthouse is listed on the National Registry.
Yes.
Now, did you help with that process?
Actually, an entourage from Winona went up. I drove. I shouldn't say that, but I drove. And it was 5 of us. And we made a presentation to the legislature. And we gave them all the guidelines that were necessary and all the information to get this grant. So we did get a $200,000 grant for the exterior because of its historic significance. That was a great day. I mean, after the legislature was over, it was an experience for me. I didn't know what to expect. We got out in the lobby and some of the legislators came out and talked to us. And we kind of thought on the way home we had a good chance because they were congenial about it and asked more questions, see, and gave us a few pointers. So it did go through. They sent a representative. We were dealing with HUD at that time, and at that time HUD wasn't established in the Twin Cities. We had to deal out in Washington, make long distance calls to pull this off. So finally we get the call from HUD. Number one, they're going to move their offices to Minneapolis and St. Paul because there's so much interest in his historic buildings around here. And number two, we got the grant. So that was a big hullabaloo for us. Yeah.
And were you involved in any way with the single Save the Lady?
That was the young people's project. I was just a little bit. I didn't do much work on that. They composed the song, and those people, and they did a nice job. And it sold a lot of records.
Do you have one of those?
I think I could dig one up or two. There might be one or two up in the attic yet. They're 45s.
And have you been involved in any other activist kind of movements?
I don't want to go there. I have, yes. Yeah. Minnesota City, there was a sand pit that wanted to use the Minnesota City streets, and our children were small, and they get away from home, and it was right next door to everybody, and they all had children like us, so we hired an attorney and we saved the city streets, and there wasn't no problem. The company was quite agreeable, but they were dragging their feet. They didn't want to spend extra money to build a road. See, they wanted to use streets into the gravel pit. So what they did, they built another side road way off the city limits, or it's in the city limits, but away from the residential area so much. And that worked out perfect, yeah. But I had the experience, we had the experience of dealing with an attorney and how to deal with an attorney and select an attorney. And that helped with the courthouse because we were able to get an attorney from Hastings that dealt in that. And he was good. He later went to Washington and he was working for the federal government attorney, yeah. So he did a lot to save it. Well, when we served our injunction, of course, he handled that. We stopped the county from taking bids. See, they were at that point, they were going to take bids for demolition in a new building. So that injunction stopped that, and we were able to work, had time to work to save the building. In other words, it prolonged the situation enough so we could get organized enough to save it, yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the Winona Calliope and what has been your involvement with that?
Oh boy, yes. The Calliope started out with a lady, Calliope, and she was good, very good. And we just did a few gigs in a year, went on steamboat days and that kind of stuff. Well, pretty soon we were going to Rochester, and she accompanied it on the grand opening of the Rochester Mall. Well, then pretty soon we were going to Rochester for Festival of Geese for parades, and pretty soon we were going up for parades every year. Well, at that time, Brother Lawrence came on the scene, and he was professor out at Winona State, at St. Mary's, sorry, at St. Mary's University. But you know, his time was limited, so he'd start doing gigs that were really tough or hard, and Virginia Orlowski was a lady artist, would do the other little easier stuff. So it just built. I mean, pretty soon Lawrence got so attached to it, he was ready for anything, and he was fantastic. Well, then Brother Lawrence moved from St. Mary's University to Dunroven up at Stillwater. So about that time, Denny Martin came along. Then he took over. And he was something else. He was the same as Lawrence, only a whole different style. You couldn't believe it. And the other lady that would fill in was Edstrom, Nancy Edstrom. She was good too, but she was so busy. I mean, she was traveling back and forth to France, but when it came for a gig, if she was available, she'd play. So we had 5 people that were well qualified to play every gig that came on. I don't know if we ever missed one. I can't say we did. The only time we missed it was we got rained out. But that was the most delightful, wonderful experience anyone could have in my category.
Could you share your experience in New Orleans?
Oh, I don't know if we want to go there. Oh, that was something. I don't know where to start, but I know when we'd come back, we'd be all trashed out, you know. Next year, they're ready to go again. I mean, it was early and late. 5 o'clock in the morning for me and 2 o'clock in the night. I was the first and the last. But those guys were so dedicated, it didn't matter. I mean, so they were awestruck. The cops and the officials and of course the audience. They'd come there with ladders that were 8 feet high, and they'd sit their families on top of that ladder, and they'd pull them like a wheelbarrow or whatever, you know, behind them. And they were on wheels. And all you could see was heads. I mean, as far up as you could look, they're in the balconies, all over. I mean, it just, and we'd go through, the first year we went through there, Denny Martin played it. And he knew all the jazz ones. And what happened out at New Orleans, they were going to, they were leaving the traditional jazz culture. They weren't playing, you know, traditional jazz tunes. They're going more contemporary. So we gets going down the parade route, and we were playing traditional, and we were getting a lot of applause. So we get down to Canal Avenue, and we're on Bourbon Street, and there, the crowd, you just couldn't believe it. Unbelievable. Somebody yelled out from the crowd, "Play When the Saints Go Marching In." The crowd will go nuts, just like that. Loud as he could. Then he cued the band, and it was just a roar. I mean, I could see Denny looking around. They're still playing. And so everybody was walking on cloud 9 after that one, you know. And we were limited with our water and coal. We didn't know, you know, we didn't have railings on the side of the bandwagon. I mean, the band just sat in there. So we were on a shoestring for funding, you know, when we got out there. We did 3 parades after the end of the gigs. We got word back from the Winona Daily News that Calliope was a hit. And that just made it all the more fun, you know. So that was it. We went 14 years after that. 14 years, yeah. And we never had a problem getting anybody to go along and play. We got professors from Winona State, St. Mary's, from all over. I mean, from La Crosse, from Blaine, Minnesota, cities. We had news reporter from the city played banjo, and of course then we got a lot of press because he was with the Minneapolis Tribune. And I might add, Denny Martin was one of the greatest musicians you could have. He was he played background for Hank Williams. He said if you were watching television, you'd see me with the accordion. So he did the circuits out in California, and I mean, he did them. And he told me after his gigs, then he passed away after that first gig at New Orleans. He told me, you know, he says that going to Mardi Gras was the highlight of my career. Yeah.
Well, Ed, it's been terrific, and I imagine every time you drive by the courthouse, you're just, you know, it probably warms your heart. I mean, what an achievement.
No, it was, I don't mean to, it was the people that funded the money. Everybody did. You know, it was a community thing.
Oh, yes.
A great thing.
You helped to bring them all together.
Well,
yeah,
it worked.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I've known her for some time now. A girl who's given so much. You know, she's beautiful in so many ways. Delicate, so much a lady, a real fine lady. But they say she must go. She must leave, never to return. How can you say goodbye to a lady with a gray hair here and there? I love her, but they say she must go.
Courthouse is a beautiful girl, hate to see her go. Courthouse is a beautiful girl, hate to see her die. Why don't you take a look, or don't you give a damn? Courthouse is a beautiful girl, please lend her a hand. Whoa, yeah, please lend her a hand. All right, please lend her a hand.
I mean, how can you say goodbye to a lady? Such a refined and stately old girl. Oh, I suppose they could take her from us. They could kill our lovely lady. We'd say goodbye and, you know, we'd miss her so. But the whole thing's so sad. Our children won't say goodbye. They haven't yet said hello.
Courthouse is a beautiful girl, I hate to see her go. Courthouse is a beautiful girl, we hate to see her die. Why don't you take a look, or don't you give a damn? The courthouse is a beautiful girl, please lend her a hand. All right, please lend her a hand. Oh yeah, please lend her a hand. All right, please lend her a hand.
What would you like to hear?
Guys playing poles.
Okay. This we were doing this parade. It was the Endymion Parade, and that's where the action was. I mean, that's the party parade, Endymion. It's a big one. It starts at, well, we had to be on site at 5:30 in the afternoon because they're bringing in floats, and they weigh 100,000 pounds. They start staging, see, and it gets real busy. So they're super early, so we can get all our equipment in because we got all old equipment we were pulling the Calliope with a 23 Dodge pickup around New Orleans and to get it on site, and then we hitched the horses over it on site at the City Park stables. But we were always short of coal and water, so to start these 100,000-pound floats, they had to get a tractor behind and they rock them because they were on tires that would settle after they stood. They'd stand 2 hours, see. So they'd be rocking these floats, and it was comical. Well, they weren't in coordination, and the tractor ahead did too much pulling, it tore the ball off the hitch. So I said to the parade chairperson, or who's in charge there of the lineup, I said, well, could we go in? I said, it's going to be a while before they get fixed up. And I said, we're short of water and coal. We could get going and get down the line. Oh, sure, that's fine. So we got in there, and pretty soon they got the parade that had the problem, or the float that had the problem, breakdown, caught up with us. And the driver came up, and he was black. And he says, hey, he says, you're making so much smoke. He says, we can't understand it back there. Well, I said, why don't you give us more space between the units? I said, we can't help this, you know. When you fire up, you know, you're going to have smoke. So we paraded a while, and there's a lot of stops and starts. Here he's back again, and we had a trumpet player from New Orleans. He was on the wagon, and he come up there, and the driver that had been up there previously came again, and I don't know what he said to this trumpet player, but the trumpet player jumped off the wagon and popped him right between the eyes. I didn't see it. I didn't know. We were... Well, then after that, everything was quiet. But I mean, the band, they didn't know what to think. They thought, you know, something would really go awry there. But we kept on going. And then the other incident was after we finished the Endymion Parade, the band was chuckling and laughing. And he says, Ed, did you see the cops take this naked guy off the light pole? He's up quite a ways. So, no, I said, I got to watch my steam and water gauge. It's dark, you know. I don't look around much. And this cop was standing out. We were making a circle, changing blocks or something. Anyway, we made a big circle. This cop was standing out in the center, but, you know, making sure everything went well. And all of a sudden, he got a bag of beads right across the side of his head. And he went for his gun, and I had to keep a straight face because you think I threw it. And that's what stuff they do, you know, play tricks, you know, on the cops. And then the arrest wasn't always so pretty, but we saw a few of those. Then there was an incident there. We had a couple of guys like to celebrate. One was a bass tuba player, and the other was a trumpet player, and they went out and got themselves some, well, put it plain, liquor. And they were sitting on the wagon. The one was sitting with his tuba, and I happened to look, and he rolled off. We were lucky he rolled off on the grass. And then when he picked up his tuba, he says, lucky I didn't bring my good tuba along. Cops riding horses in a group, how they arrest? They got a huge rope, and they just circle around this group of people, and they pull the rope tight. We did have an accident, and we ran over one of the walkers, our crew members, and she liked to jump through between the Calliope and the bandwagon. I told her, don't do that. I said, you know, that's dangerous. Well, she did anyway, and she stumbled and fell, and she was smart enough, she rolled on her back, and the bandwagon, I kept the tires inflated about 20 pounds, so when it went over, I thought she was, you know, gone. So we had to pull out of the parade that time. And everybody was good. I mean, pretty soon the ambulances were there, and it didn't take long. And I was kneeled down beside her. She says, don't worry. She says, I'm okay. Yeah. So she went to the hospital. They just an emergency, and by the time we got the Calliope and horses and everything out of the parade and got back to the stables and got to our hotel, she was back. She's back to our hotel. So it turned out a good. So whenever people ask me, well, did you ever have something serious go wrong? And I can say, well, nothing that we couldn't handle ourselves, see. So I personally feel lucky, thankful that we never had a fatality or, you know, or injury that would be detrimental. The semi-drivers were the greatest. We had the best, and they're not afraid of anything, you know, and they're having fun at it too. And well, a few times we had some pretty close calls, see. And when they said it was close or too close, I listened. Then they'd say, geez, you know, we got to watch this, you know, this is too close. Well, I'd tell them, you know, I think something's going on here besides good luck. So we got through it. And it was only because we had the best crew, we had the best musicians, we had the best funding, best support, and the best audience. Oh, yes. My father had a 23 Dodge truck when he moved on the farm. He was in partnership with a hardware store, so when they split up, the truck was getting poor shape, so he got the truck. So finally the truck was getting pretty shaky, so we put it into storage. Well, then he bought a 26 Dodge that was in Minnesota City. Both were local. The 23 was from Rolex Stone, and the 26 was from Minnesota City, Church Brothers, hardware stores. So that one stood out in the field too. It was all rusty, but he got it started and got it home. So then we decided we'd restore it. Well, then I was pulling the Calliope with that around and went on and stuff, different stuff, and then we different entertainment gigs, and we broke an axle. So I thought, well, we should have a backup truck. So we restored the 23. Well, then we had two of them to deal with. If one needed some work, we could always go. So both of them went out to Mardi Gras. One went 7 times, and the other one went 8 times, something like that. And it was quite an attraction because every year we use a different one. You know, and some people remembered that. They'd ask about it, and in fact, they wanted to buy both of them. I had a couple of offers, and we had a chance to put one in a movie they were doing out there. I said, we got our plane tickets and their schedule. We can hang around. So that's the Dodges, and we had some fun experiences with them. We just got it done the Sunday before we left Mardi Gras. It was tight, so we get out there and it would be tight or stall. The cops would give it a push during parade. I mean, we had it tuned up good, it would start, but I mean, it was just tight. So pretty soon the cops were riding on the tailgate. That was when there was 2 cops. Then everything was quite quiet. I mean, they didn't have, the last years we were there was murders, you know, on the parade route, so much violence, you know. But those days it was more relaxed, you know, and they're just having more fun. I think they still have fun, but it's in a little different way. They're more subdued, but those days anything could happen. Well, I hope it's a benefit to you and to everybody. To me it was the greatest thing anyone could do, I think, you know.
Center.
Sure,
So
good.
anyone would have access to them.
Sure, well, good thing we told the truth, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.